welcome back to the channel. So today we are back working on our beautiful 4xe that we have back here. If you remember the last video that we uploaded, we had just done the gears and installed these beautiful 37-inch tires on this guy. But it raised a problem. Now, he does have a small lift in here. It does have the Rubicon driveline, but it doesn't have the Rubicon high clearance fender flares. So on the back of the vehicle, you can actually see, if you look, we have very little room back here before the tire starts actually hitting the fender well, and it actually makes a ton of noise, even on very light flexing off-road. So as Jeeps are a never-ending project, the next step is going to be to take these fender flares off and put some high clearance on. Now, we could have gone with just the Rubicon flares and kept the original look, but instead, we've decided to go with some awesome aftermarket ones that we think are going to look badass on this Jeep. So stick around, because I think this video is going to be right up there with one you're going to enjoy. So welcome back to the channel, folks. Once again, my name is Josh, and we are in the shop here at J4B Overland Solutions working on our 4xe. So we talked about in the introduction that we're going to be replacing these fender flares. So let me show you what we're going to put on it. From our friends down at Hook Road, they hooked us up with some high clearance fender flares for the JL, which they're brand new in the box. So let's get this thing opened up here. These guys are actually pretty stout already, I can tell. So unlike the factory fender flares that are on the JL, which are plastic, by the way, these guys are aluminum. Look at this. This is gorgeous. So we'd be able to take a hit, definitely increases the clearance, and comes with wiring to include your factory turn signals on the front. So we already have Benny getting the wheels off on the JL so that we can work on getting these fender flares off, and we're going to see what it looks like, and super excited to see the finished product. What do you think? So getting the old fender flares off of a JL is actually super simple. There's a couple of bolts on the inside for the inner liner or the wheel well that's in there, but the fender itself is just held on by plastic clips. So it's just a matter of giving it a good tug or a yank. And you know what? Since we're replacing them, it's okay if the clips break. They're just going to pop right off, and then the whole fender comes right off. Once you got the old fender off, as you can see, what Benny's doing here behind me is you got to get all these plastic clips that are left behind off as well. And if you're anything like the rest of us that have electronic accessories that are run through the entire thing, at this point, if there's any wiring that's hanging down, now is the best time to zip tie it out of place and get it cleaned up. Now, even if you don't use your Jeep off-road, this spot down in here where the old fender was is a great collection point for dust. So before we go and lay out installing the new stuff, definitely want to make sure to get it all cleaned up. So for the front flares on a JL, it has lights built into the flares. So in order to get the lights to work, you need to connect them through the factory wiring harness. Now this is where a lot of people get scared because, yeah, this is a semi-permanent install. So the wiring on the factory fender flare is a 5-wire, 6-pin wiring harness. You're going to need to cut that off of the factory fender flare. And then you're going to have to locate the 3 wires, not the 5, but the 3 wires that are going to control the blinkers that go on this particular fender. Now, depending upon the brand that you get, you may have the option for daytime running lights. That's what the other 2 wires are for, okay? The ones that we chose here through Hook Road do not have the option for daytime running lights. They're just blinkers. So, although it might be different depending upon the year, so far from what we can tell, most of the JLs, regardless of the model, are the same. So your black wire is going to be your ground. Your white wire that has a green stripe is going to be for your blinker, and then your yellow wire, which flows through the very first pin. So just in case it's not yellow on yours, it's got a little black stripe on it, is going to be the constant signal wire. According to the directions, keeps the warning lights off the dash. Now, we did look this up. There are several people online that are indicating that a resistor needs to be added to the system. We don't have any resistors at this time, so we're going to try it without it. But if we do bump into any problems or concerns, then we may have to add a resistor later on. But don't forget that you got to do that. You got the wiring that's coming off of the fender. You need to cut the wiring off the new one, and then you need to mold them together so that they are part of one wiring harness before you install the front fender. So let me show you what the finished product is going to look like. So here's our factory wiring harness that we cut off the fender and then spliced right in to the light that is on the actual fender flare. So once everything is all installed and cleaned up and all nice and pretty, we'll test functionality, make sure it all works. The good news is because these are aftermarket flares and not factory flares, even though we are putting inner liners and stuff in here, all the wiring should easily be accessible once we're done. So if we got to correct it, we can correct it. But side note, don't forget to do your wiring. If you are going to cut this wiring harness off, I just want to point out, make sure you leave enough in this harness for you to make mistakes, but make sure you leave enough on the factory fender flare that if you decide for whatever reason to go backwards and put the factory ones back on, all you got to do is match wires, wire it back up, and it should go back to working the way it originally was. So there you have it, folks. We got the fender flares installed. It's actually super straightforward and super easy as they literally bolt right in place of where the old ones came off. Plus, goodness, the texture and fit and finish on this matches the bumper, the trim, and everything else he's got going on. Couldn't have been any more perfect than that. So, solved a problem and makes the Jeep look good. Can't get much better than that, right? So in the meantime, folks, if you have any questions whatsoever about what we did on these, they're super simple, super straightforward, and not nearly as expensive as you would think anymore, as the prices on these parts for the JL models are starting to level right back out again. So if you have questions, put those down in the comments below. And stay tuned, because we're not quite done with this particular ride yet. There's a couple more things we need to do to get her dialed in and perfect. So more videos are definitely coming your way. So once again, my name is Josh. This is J4B. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to the next time we see each other. So stay safe and happy Jeeping, folks. We'll see you next time. God, that looks good. Yeah, you know what? I think that's the perfect amount of clearance. You know what we should do to test it? I got an idea, guys.